But I think we know technology exists that can support.
Yeah.
Speech analytics is a tool that we know works that can support them in this route. But how can agents be better trained to pick up on those subtle cues, the subtle comments that customers are making? How do we ensure that on the front line that those agents are picking up on that in the moment? How could we train them to do that better?
I think a lot of it is about to help their understanding. So I think there is a lot of this which still comes back to, if somebody talks about a vulnerability, there are 80 odd characteristics arguably that could be, you could have display all 81, you could have, you go from neurodiversity through to financial.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about people who maybe can't see, can't hear, can't do whatever, but it's to help them have that understanding that these things are happening because probably they're happening to lots of people that they maybe know. But it's how do you help them understand that there are so many things that will affect how a customer behaves, how they maybe want to pay, what they want to do. And of course, the reality is there will be lots of agents who it's the perfect storm of they may be hitting 5, 6, 7, 8 of these characteristics, working at home on their own on the kitchen table, speaking to a customer who's displaying a number of these characteristics. So it's how do we help explain to them that yes, these things are there, they are in people's lives. It doesn't, just because you tick box X doesn't mean we need to deliver Y, but it's just making them aware of that. And I think as well, it's when it's for compliance, it's a very different matter, isn't it? Because we have to be displaying to do this, we have to be displaying to do that.
I think there's an interesting a few points really around the environment that you create for them to work in as well. Because if you look at, I guess, some of the traditional contact center metrics to drive performance of things like AHT and as you just said, compliance as well, you can almost create a culture of fear. To achieve your targets, you must ignore the customer requirement to a certain extent. So if you're just driving on metrics like average handle time, and you're just looking to, essentially reduce your cost base on without the consideration of the customer, then that's not particularly friendly towards those that may be in a vulnerable situation. And compliance, another important one as well. So how often have we seen the culture of fear around, if I miss one of my tick boxes, and typically it's done on a tiny sample size as well, which is frankly ridiculous. But how often we see that, and I think then there's the onus, if you will, on the organisation to invest time into understanding how they're driving performance and ensure that that's aligned to what the service that they're trying to provide to their customers as well, and they kind of don't I guess fight against each other.
I think as well though, because we're sort of saying we take the technology out, how do we train the people? Nobody really understands the types of conversations that are happening out there because so few organisations will be analysing every single conversation. So again, it's difficult, isn't it, to know whether the reason that you have particularly lengthy calls in your call centre is because you have very empathetic agents who spend a long time chatting with their customers, or is it, that something else is happening. So I think there is an element of the technology. If the technology is there and the data is there, that can then be balanced, with actually we have a lot of customers who are vulnerable that we never knew about. We need to review what we're doing versus, let's just take a blanket approach. In the most peculiar, we had, when we had worked with National Trust many years ago, I sort of went into that thinking, oh, well, this will be a lovely area for agents to work in because it'll be people ringing you up going, oh, the scone was lovely, or, oh, the trees are nice, or this, that and the other. And actually, they had a lot of distressing calls because, of course, you pay for membership. Somebody dies. You need to ring up and say, they're no longer here, please take me off. There were people, of course, who were saying, I can't afford to pay, this isn't now a priority. And of course, naturally, you wouldn't assume that in that kind of environment, perhaps they may have a lot of vulnerable people ringing in. So yeah, it's important to understand what is actually happening.
A really interesting point you made about treating people with tarring everyone with the same brush, or just I think that that's one thing that technology does enable. now as well, is when you're able to create that view of what's driving performance on an individual basis. You don't have to push everybody through the same training. You don't have to make sure everybody's ticking the same box on a quarterly basis. You can actually bespoke your approach to individuals based on their own requirements as well. And I think that again it should be a huge shift for the industry in the last kind of, I guess, 5 to 10 years really.
And I guess it helps with recruitment as well, doesn't it? Because you then understand the types of people that you're needing to recruit. I mean, we spend a lot of our time working with clients and in call centres, listening to phones, and there are such varying different levels of agent interactions that you see. You know, there are some who they just want to get the job done, and they will probably be the ones who have great call stats and all of that. But sometimes there are things that customers say that I may be listening and go, oh, I'd have picked up on that, or I'd have asked something. But I would imagine in their minds they're going, I can't do this because it's going to extend my call time, which again then comes back to, you know, the conversations, you know, about is it the right thing to be doing?
Well, I think it's definitely changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
If you look at the type, you know, go back 15 years ago, how many people phoned their bank to ask for a balance inquiry?
Yeah.
Lots of them,
Yeah.
because you couldn't be bothered to go to the
Yeah,
cash
yeah.
point, or there wasn't one close to you. Or
Yeah.
now that's readily available on the app. So if you're calling them, it's probably not going to be about what's my
something really
balance
big.
and has a payment come out.
Yeah.
It's going to be a payment has come out and that's
Yeah.
causing issues. So not only are you, I guess, getting rid, so to speak, of the easier contacts, you're also potentially driving more difficult contacts in the contact centre and ultimately changing the type of person that you need on the other end of the phone.